Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discussed are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The new Marvel Legends Ursa Major wave is starting to hit stores, and I am excited. Some of the figures in this wave are figures that I've been wanting Hasbro to make for years, and probably none more so than the modular armor Iron Man. To get ourselves ready for that 90s version of Iron Man, today we're going to take a trip all the way back to the Joe Fixit wave with Thunderstrike. Starting off the packaging, and Thunderstrike looks just as surprised as I am that it took me this long to review him. Decent-ish picture of Thunderstrike on the side. I'm not gonna lie, it isn't Hasbro's best work, but we do get a pretty decent product shot on the back. One thing that this figure is a bit notorious for is a bit of a typo in the bio. Eric Masterson follows in the noble footsteps of his idol Thor because the world still needs heroes. The Build-A-Figure for this series is Joe Fixit from the new Marvel Avengers video game. The other figures in the wave include Iron Man, Captain America, Falcon, Costa, and the Kang that we already looked at. Another minor nitpick that I have is the blue background of the insert tray. Because Thunderstrike himself is mostly blue, he kind of disappears into the back of the box, so he really would have benefited from a more contrasting color. Substandard art, a typo that'll be really confusing for people just learning about the character, and a really uninspired insert tray that makes him fade into the background. For packaging, I'm giving Thunderstrike half a point. Moving on to presentation, and you might have an idea where this is going to go, but I think you also might be surprised. Starting off with his height, and Thunderstrike stands at just under 7 inches. And before we get into the nitty-gritty, by the way, is this face sculpt, I want to make an overall observation. When I picked up Thunderstrike, I had a feeling he was just going to end up being mostly a repaint of this 80 years Thor. That is absolutely not the case. Oh, don't get me wrong, they still use this body as a base, but they resculpted a lot of the details to make it very uniquely Thunderstrike. In fact, the only direct reuse from these two individual figures that I can find are the arms. Hasbro really did their due diligence to make this its own unique figure. Where they failed to do their due diligence, however, is in the head sculpt. Near as I can tell, this is where they took their inspiration from, and honestly, I think they did a good job of translating it. The issue that I, and pretty much everybody else has, is that this is our only option. If it had just been an extra head, I don't think any of us would have been complaining about it. And even so, there's a lot to celebrate. I love the pearlized blue buttons on his shirt. The vest is a nice soft plastic, and they did go the extra mile to punch in the silver for the buttons and buckle. There's also some really great leather texturing, and that's continued all the way down here in the boots. Also, is it just me, or does this thing look more like David Harbour than their actual figure of David Harbour? He also kind of looks a little bit like Mel Gibson. The head choice is frustrating, but it is well done, and the body is just about 80% all new tooling. To be honest, this is a really solid figure, so it may surprise you to know that for presentation, I'm actually going to be giving Thunderstrike 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and yeah, is there any point in even talking about this head? It turns side to side fine, but between the ponytail and the collar and the giant chin, there is just no up and down. The arms raise up to 90 degrees. They spin around just fine. Got a bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows have a pretty good crunch considering these biceps. And swivel hinge wrist gets this far up and that far down. Moving on down to the rest of the torso articulation, and do you remember the part where I said that they modeled this off of the 80 years Thor but made some changes? One of the biggest changes is articulation. The 80 years Thor has a diaphragm joint that does all the things that a diaphragm joint needs to do, but he also has waist rotation. Thunderstrike has the diaphragm, but pulling his belt away, we can see that they did away with the waist. To be honest, I'm a little bit torn on this. We're used to female figures only having diaphragm joints, but they're usually a lot tinier, so it makes sense. I mean, this does technically get the job done, but on the other hand, it really interferes with the placement of the buttons. That being said, he gets a pretty decent amount back, and also a fair amount forward. Decent-ish leg spread, nice smooth thigh cut, pinless double jointed knees, don't really get a whole lot of range though because of the cut of the boot. And speaking of the boot, there is no boot cut rotation, but he does have perfect Marvel Legend ankles. So yeah, kind of a mixed bag. He's perfectly functional, but after a while, the limitations of his head articulation and diaphragm do start to get in the way. For posability, I'm giving Thunderstrike half a point. Moving on to playability, and Thunderstrike comes with his mace, also called Thunderstrike. For those of you who don't know, Thunderstrike is a guy named Eric Masterson who merged with Thor to become the new Thor. After a while, the two were separated and Odin gave him his own weapon. He was his own hero for a while in the 90s until complications from his final battle with the Egyptian god Seth led to his untimely demise. In addition to the Thunderstrike mace, the Thunderstrike also comes with this alternate fist for his left hand. Side note, be very careful when switching them out because this bracelet is not attached to anything and can easily get lost. Also, and this is just a point of order, if you're going to give him an alternate fisted hand, why wasn't it for this one? Seriously, when switching the hands out, I automatically put it on this one because that's the one that made sense. So you've got to pose him with the mace, otherwise he ends up looking kinda silly. I checked my accessories for the 80 years Thor, and yeah, he doesn't have one either. Is it just me, or is this kind of an oversight? And of course, he also comes with the head of Joe Fixit. But playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figure plays with others, so here he is with the 80 years Thor and Beta Ray Bill. And as much as I enjoy this design, I do hope that eventually Hasbro gives us the classic version. Close enough for now. Speaking of the 90s and also Toy Biz, here he is with Loki and the Smart Hulk. For a 90s style Marvel comparison by Hasbro, here he is with Spider-Man, Black Widow, Daredevil, and Wolverine. I can't wait to add the modular suit Iron Man to this collection. For a 7-inch comparison, here he is with the Marvel Select Disney Store exclusive Thor. Side note, this is actually my favorite Thor figure. And lastly, here's Thunderstrike alongside one of the great prizes of my collection, the Marvel Select Destroyer. This is a figure so big I literally had to zoom out past my review station just to fit him in the frame. As long as you've got him in a battle pose, the screaming head is fine, and as long as you don't mind him holding his mace forever and ever, I guess that's fine too. I didn't take off points in presentation because I still felt that it was sculpted well, but in this category, the lack of options is really dragging this figure down. For playability, I'm giving Thunderstrike half a point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. I picked up Thunderstrike at Target just before Christmas, so it's been a while since you've seen him on retail shelves. Even so, at the time of this recording, he's still available for retail price on Amazon and loose on eBay for even less. If you're a Thor fan or just a fan of 90s Marvel, I definitely recommend picking him up, but definitely hold out for the best price you can find. For price, I'm giving Thunderstrike 1 whole point for a grand total of 3.5 out of 5. I say this is an absolute win. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Marvel Legends Joe Fixit Wave Thunderstrike. Thank you so much for watching. Next time, we'll be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Modular Suit Iron Man and celebrating the 50th video on this channel. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.